Welcome back to Riley's Collection. I'm Riley, and today we're going to be talking about my top 10 favorite Spider-Man action figures. Okay, so I wanted to start off with some honorable mentions here. Now, these Spider-Man figures are great Spider-Man figures in their own right. They just didn't make it on my personal top 10. The reason being is the Amazing Fantasy Spider-Man here, while he is a great figure, I'm just not too crazy about the red and black. It does look good and it poses great, but just not personally like my cup of tea. And then the Ben Reilly here, I do really like this figure, although I wish he had the bigger eyes rather than the smaller ones, because he is more prominently featured with bigger eyes in the comics. And I think the blue's a bit too bright there. I still like it, but I just think that there's other stuff on this list that is better to me personally. So coming in at number 10, we have this ToyBiz Sam Raimi costume Spider-Man. And I don't really know which one this is because I did get him loose from a friend back in middle school, I think. But I adore this figure and he's in really good condition for how old he is. Personally, the Sam Raimi suit is one of my favorite Spider-Man costumes of all time. When I was 3 years old, my first exposure to Spider-Man was the Sam Raimi movie, the first one. And so I have a very special connection to those movies. I mean, I could probably quote the entirety of Spider-Man 1. And even though this figure is hella old at this point, it still has amazing articulation, more than a lot of Marvel Legends today. And while the joints have loosened up over time, mine in particular isn't too loosey-goosey, so I can still get him into some nice poses. And yeah, ultimately I just had to have this guy on this list. Coming in at number 9, we have the retro animated Spider-Man by Marvel Legends. I absolutely had to have this guy on my list as I grew up with the 90s animated series, and while this guy does have a lot of problems, that's kind of why he's not higher up on this list, I do still really love him. He's basically the same figure as the Amazing Fantasy Spider-Man, just a different deco and head sculpt, but I prefer this deco and head sculpt. Nothing really beats the classic red and blue for me. I don't really like the cell shading on this guy, and I don't like that the blue is a bit too bright. But other than that, I think he looks fantastic. They got the head sculpt like on point. They hit the nail right on the head with the head sculpt. And the articulation here is great, so it's fun for days. It was a Walmart online exclusive, which was really annoying because I wasn't able to get my pre-order, so I did have to overpay by a lot for this guy. So that kind of tainted the fun a little bit for me, I think. But I still had and do continue to have a great time with this figure. Okay, coming in at number 8, we have the MAFEX Spider-Man Homecoming Spidey. I absolutely love Spider-Man Homecoming, the movie, so this guy was like a no-brainer for me because he is hands down the best 6-inch scale Homecoming Spider-Man there is out there, period, in my opinion. Honestly, I don't think any company really nailed it right on the head, not even MAFEX, but they're definitely the closest. And this figure is really good. It's very posable. Paint and detail is spectacular on this guy. The web lines aren't super consistent all the way through. They're a little bit faded in some areas and a little bit more prominent in others, but that's more of a minor thing that I'm very willing to overlook with this guy. I love the texture all over him, especially on the blue areas. And yeah, I just think that he's a great representation for the movie. I also really liked that he did come with the Tom Holland head, although it's not my favorite Tom Holland head sculpt. It still looks good, and I love to take pictures of him with my Marvel Legends Robert Downey Jr. But yeah, overall, I love this guy. So for number 7, we have the Marvel Legends Miles Morales Gamerverse figure, and I absolutely adore this figure. When it came out, I was absolutely blown away by the sculpt of it and just how much detail they were able to pack into this figure, as well as the slew of accessories that comes with him. He comes with 4 pairs of hands and an unmasked head, which for $20 at the time was an amazing value. And considering all the good stuff they gave us with this guy, I'm not sure why they're skipping out on the accessories and not giving a unique sculpt to the new PS5 Spider-Man, but that's a conversation for a different day. I also love that one of the sets of hands that you get are the Venom Blast like effect hands, and they look fantastic. You really do get pretty much everything you need with your figure here. He's not necessarily the most articulated Spider-Man ever, but I think everything else that comes with this guy, detailed sculpt, good paintwork, great accessories, all make up for that. And if you can still find him for a good price, I would highly recommend getting this guy. He was absolutely my favorite figure of 2021. And he was one of the first figures that I hunted down when I started collecting again. But yeah, overall, fantastic. Coming in at number 6, we have the MEZCO Spider-Man 2099. And yeah, this guy had to be on my list. This is actually the only MEZCO figure in my collection. And I actually wasn't really totally convinced on the whole MEZCO thing and the cloth costume, because I was seeing a lot of stuff coming out where I was like, I really don't like how that looks, and it's definitely not worth it if it's going to hinder the articulation. But then I saw this guy and I was like, oh yeah, we definitely have to try that out. And he does not disappoint. The costume on this guy looks fantastic, and you can still get him into a great amount of poses. And every time I've left this guy in a more extreme pose, when I get him back to the neutral pose, the costume is kind of a little creased, but it always bounces back. So I haven't had any issues with the costume getting damaged or anything like that, and this guy still looks just as good as he did right out of the package. On top of all that, you get a crap ton of accessories, multiple different heads, including an unmasked head, a half unmasked head, plus you get his communicator watch that also comes with another version with Lyra on it, a bunch of different web accessories, etc. Now, I did buy him from the secondary market, and he was not cheap. At the time, I paid about $200 for this guy, and I would imagine you're probably looking at a similar price nowadays. So yeah, this figure definitely isn't for everyone, but if you can spare the money and you love Spider-Man 2099 just as much as I do, I would highly recommend it. And as somebody who is a massive fan of Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, the video game that came out on Xbox 360 and PS3, I absolutely had to have the best version of this character that I possibly could. I remember following the release of that game and waiting for it to come out, and ultimately it was what introduced me to Spider-Man 2099 and Spider-Man Noir, and it was one of the first times that I'd considered the possibility of a Spider-Verse. But yeah, this figure is awesome. Everything about the costume, that giant spider logo he has on him, the wired web cape, and that absolutely phenomenal head sculpt. This guy definitely deserves a spot on this list. Breaking into the top 5 here, we have the Marvel Legends Symbiote Spider-Man. This guy is from the second retro wave, and I was so excited to get this guy when he came out. Now, I didn't pre-order this guy, and I could not find him anywhere, so I did overpay for him twice. But to me, it was worth it because I just needed to have my hands on this figure. It was everything I wanted in a Symbiote Spider-Man, more articulation in a Marvel Legends than I had ever had before. And while there's not too much going on with the paintwork on this guy or even the sculpt, it doesn't need to. I mean, this is a very simple design, and I was honestly glad that they didn't do any blue shading because, well, I figured they'd mess it up anyway. So yeah, I was really satisfied with this guy. I also really like how they gave him the smaller eyes here. It was a little bit of a different look that they hadn't done yet, and I really appreciated getting the new head sculpt. I've had so much fun posing this guy around and taking many pictures of him. And while he's not necessarily the best Symbiote Spider-Man out there, it's definitely the best one in its price range. So if you can't get the MAFEX one or something like that, or you prefer the smaller eyes, this is a no-brainer pickup. If you like Symbiote Spider-Man, you will have a great time with this figure. And personally, I have the MAFEX one, and I still adore this figure. And the great thing about Marvel Legends is that when you want to travel and maybe take a figure or two with you to get some outside shots or anything like that, Marvel Legends are your go-tos because you know they're going to be durable. If they break, it's not that big of a deal because they're not that expensive, or at least they used to not be that expensive. But I mean, even with the new outrageously high price points, they're still cheaper than a lot of import figures. And this one at the time was that $22 price point. I'm not really sure what he is right now on the secondary market, but I'm sure you can still get him for a relatively low price, considering there's been so much other Spider-Man stuff that's come out since this has. But yeah, I'd say definitely pick it up if you can find it for a good price. Coming in at number 4, we have the Renew Your Vows Spider-Man by Marvel Legends. I do have some problems with it. He is on the same body as the Symbiote Spider-Man we just talked about, except here it's a little bit more updated. It has the toe joints and it's totally pinless, and both of those things were huge selling points for the Spider-Man. However, I do think that they should have fixed the neck joint and gave him something better in that area. But that was pretty much the main issue I had with it. That and the joints started loosening up like not too long after I got him. Now don't get me wrong, he'll still hold the pose very well, but I just don't like feel that tightness anymore like I still do with the Symbiote Spider-Man as well as the other retro carded Spider-Man I have. So honestly, that was a little bit disappointing for me as well. But when I saw this guy, I was watching the Hasbro live stream when this got announced. I was immediately like, oh yeah, that is the Spider-Man, the quintessential, like the one I need in my collection. And so I pre-ordered it as soon as I could. I also didn't like that it was in a 2-pack with Spinneret because I still don't care about that figure at all. The paintwork on this figure was pretty good. There are some minor imperfections in the web lines, but overall the paint deco looks really good. I do really like the wider eyes on this guy. For a while, I didn't really know how I felt about the head sculpt because it is very reminiscent of the Pizza Spider-Man head sculpt, and I do not like that head sculpt at all, but it is much better here. I think the color choices for this guy were spot on. That is the exact like red and blue that I want my Spider-Man to have. I think the spider logo maybe could have been smaller on the front, but I kind of got used to it being bigger and it doesn't really bother me. If you want the best Spider-Man figure of all time, I'm not really convinced that this is the one, but it is one of the most classic looking Spider-Man you can get your hands on, especially when it comes to Marvel Legends. And if you dig a more muscular Spider-Man like I do, this one might be the one for you. At number 3, we do have the MAFEX Symbiote Spider-Man, and in my opinion, this is the Symbiote Spider-Man. The sculpt and paint on this guy are unmatched by any Symbiote Spider-Man out there. He's even got the blue on the bottom of his feet like he does in the comics. And this is an import figure, so of course he's going to come with a load of accessories. He's also got like this really nice subtle blue shading all over him that looks fantastic. The paintwork on the spider logo is really clean, although I think it is a little bit cleaner on the Marvel Legends, to be honest with you. But any small imperfections it does have, I promise you won't notice it. And he comes with what is, in my opinion, the best Black Suit Spider-Man head sculpt ever produced. This head sculpt right here screams McFarlane. He also comes with another one that also looks very good, but this is the one that I prefer to have him displayed with. And of course the articulation is going to be fantastic. This is based on the comic Spidey MAFEX figure, like the original one. So the bodies here are going to be very similar. The only thing I will say here is that the left leg pops off a little too easy for my liking, and that can make it kind of frustrating to try and get him into certain poses. But that's really like the biggest flaw, and once you do have him posed up, he looks absolutely fantastic. And I think he's definitely worth having on your shelf. But if you don't want to spend the money to get this guy, definitely just go for the Marvel Legends, because that's going to do you more than fine. And while this is very, very nice, if you're not like a massive Black Suit Spider-Man fan, just go with the Marvel Legends. It'll be more than enough. Coming in at number 2 here, we have the SH FIGUARTS Spider-Man No Way Home Integrated Suit Spider-Man. And I think this is going to be a pretty controversial pick, because this is by no means anywhere close to the best Spider-Man figure you can get. But that's why this video is called my top 10 favorite Spider-Man figures. not the top 10 best Spider-Man figures ever. I know there's a ton of people who really don't like this figure, and that's perfectly okay. It does have some huge problems like the inaccurate color scheme and the fact that he doesn't come with a ton of accessories. But what he can do is articulate, and he can do it for days. This is one of the most articulated Spider-Man in my collection, or probably ever produced, period. There are so many fantastic poses you can get this guy into, because most of the time, SH Figuarts does not skimp on articulation, and this is hands down the most articulated Figuarts figure in my collection. And personally, the inaccurate colors don't really bother me. I honestly prefer the blue to the like gray color that it's actually supposed to be. So I'm totally okay with that. And this guy is getting a re-release with more accurate colors. So if you want to try this guy out but you don't really care for the inaccurate colors, I would say go for the one that's coming out, because I'm assuming it's going to be the exact same figure, just an updated paint job. So if you do care about the accurate colors, I'd say go for that one. But I think this guy is just great, and I've had so much fun taking many pictures and posing this guy up in many poses and hanging him from my shelf. And yeah, I just absolutely love this guy. He is a bit of a dust magnet, which isn't my favorite thing, but ultimately, despite this guy's flaws, I can't help but put him in my top 2. He is just so much fun. And coming in at number 1, we have the Sentinel SV Action Peter B. Parker figure. This is hands down the best Spider-Man figure ever produced, in my opinion. Now, I don't have the MAFEX Classic Color Spider-Man, but I do have the black suit one. I know exactly what it would be like to have it, and I think that this guy just kind of blows it out of the water. No, this isn't a comic book Spider-Man, so if you do want like the definitive comic book Spider-Man, it's probably gonna be the MAFEX one. But if you want the most posable classic Spider-Man figure that you can possibly get, this is the one. And yes, it is a little bit stylized because it is from the Into the Spider-Verse movie, but if you can get past that, at the end of the day, this really is just a classic Spider-Man, and I'm sure you would fit right in on your 616 Spider-Man display. Not to mention, this guy comes with a ton of accessories, so you'll have fun for days just playing around with all the different accessories it comes with. One of my favorites being the wide-eyed Spider-Man head, and I found this guy for a great price on the secondary market. So if you can find him at a good price and you want him, like definitely pick him up. All of the web lines are sculpted in, and they're not really like a true black, they're almost like a gray, which really helps like the spider logo and the border around the eyes to just really pop. And there's texture all over this guy. And if you like getting your Spider-Man into awesome crouching poses, no Spider-Man can crouch as good as this one. At this point, I haven't had this guy in my collection for too long, maybe like 1 or 2 weeks. So perhaps there is some recency bias there, but I really don't think so. I've had a lot of time to play with this guy, and I've always been somebody that really highly values articulation. And so when you give me what is essentially the most posable classic Spider-Man ever, yeah, chances are it's gonna top my list. Alright guys, so that was my top 10 favorite Spider-Man action figures. I really do hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure you hit that like button. It really does help this channel out. And if you haven't subscribed already, hit that subscribe button, because subscribing to this channel gives you lifetime unlimited access to my collection. And I don't know about you, but that sounds like a pretty good deal to me. Guys, let me know down in the comments, what's your favorite Spider-Man figure? I'd really love to hear from you. And let me know what you think of my list. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are some of these your favorite Spider-Man as well? But with all that said, that's gonna be about it for this video, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one.